Hello YouTubers and welcome to Novus Talks with me, your host Novus Gorvius. And for this video, as you can most definitely tell, we have some new rumours to discuss in relation to the future of the live action Transformers movies. I can't even remember the last time I did a video on this. It might have been January, I think, was when the Beast Wars rumour came out. So running on from that, I guess this is the newest piece of information we have. This information came out today, so there really isn't that many people reporting on it just yet, but it's gathered a bit of attention. And that is that the latest rumor comes from, I believe, Hasbro themselves. A press conference or something, maybe online I think, most likely, talking about their first quarter year and what's been going well for them. And they talked about the future of some of their brands, most notably Transformers. And in it, they mentioned that they had plans to make more movies to come. That just seems like basic company statement. We know they've made statements like that in the past. So where's the real bit of, I suppose, information coming from? And it's afterwards, shortly after this went up on TF Nation, this other article came up from Deadline and a few other sources that the director of Toy Story 4, Josh Cooley, came up as being apparently is directing an animated movie set on Cybertron, a prequel to be exact. And shockingly, the script comes from Andrew Barreer and Gabriel Farrari. These names should be familiar to anyone who has followed any bit of Transformers news in the last few years. For those who haven't, for those who have forgotten, this isn't the first time we've heard of a Transformers animated movie set on Cybertron. I'm going to recap for a while and fill you in the background, the history of this, before we talk about the newer stuff that's come up. So this goes all the way back to 2015, where in the writer's room of I think they had like 14 or 15 writers or something. Andrew Barreer and Gabriel Ferrari were in that writer's room, and they came up with a script for an animated prequel titled Transformers 1. This movie was to be set before the first movie, and it was going to be about the origins of the war and things like this, leading up to where we are now, and apparently would have a vague connection to Earth. That was the first time we heard about the movie. The next, I suppose, big thing came in 2017, I think it was. After the whole writer's room fell apart and stuff, we weren't sure of the fate of Transformers 1 if that movie was still happening. It was never said definitively that it was cancelled, only that Transformers 6 and other movies were cancelled, so we're not exactly sure on that part. But then we come into 2018, coming up to the release of Transformers Bumblebee, and Lorenzo de Bonaventura is making the rounds a lot, and he's making comments about the movies, and that the Cybertron movie, Transformers 1, is still going ahead, and that it will allegedly showcase a big chunk of the mythology or something, will go really in depth. On top of that, Travis Knight was asked about it, and he gave this quote here, I have it up. He talks about the movie, that it would be entirely animated with CGI, and that I think that it would look realistic and it would allow them to explore more possibilities, things like this. So that's all we got from him. And I can't remember now if it was after this or if this was in 2017, but it also came up, Hasbro teamed up with Boulder Media, this might have been around the summer of 2018, to produce an animated feature film for one of their properties. Naturally, Transformers was among those properties, and Boulder Media were speculated to be making Transformers 1. Not only this, it was apparently being made in a studio right here in Ireland, funnily enough. And Boulder Media started putting out hiring positions, saying that they were looking for people, and they wanted to meet people who'd be interested in joining their team to help out with this. So that was all grand. That was really exciting at the time because it was going to be the second Transformers movie that would be, I guess, shot here in Ireland, and the first to be entirely made here. But we never heard anything else from that. That just kind of vanished into thin air. I think Boulder Media went on to help out with Cyberverse, and I think they did work with My Little Pony as well. So that was the last we heard of that. To my knowledge, we didn't hear anything else. Transformers War for Cybertron was announced for Netflix, and we all presumed that's what had become of the movie. That they obviously, I was of the heavy belief that we weren't going to get an animated movie. That the Netflix series is what we were getting now in its place. Because there was no information on about it until now. But here we are in 2020, and it is worth bringing up actually. Around 2018, Hasbro started putting out their plans for movies going forward. This might have been around the release of Bumblebee as well. They were stating that they were going to release an animated movie every second year or something like that, followed by a live action movie. I'm not sure if this was entirely in relation to Transformers or just all their brands. I believe it was all their brands. But they were going to do a live action movie, an animated movie, and then another live action movie. And this kind of fits in with that, that they want to get a schedule of live action movies and animated movies coming up. That their next project is Transformers 1. Based on the new information we've got, this finally brings us to where we are now. Supposedly, okay, so Andrew Barreer and Gabriel Ferrari are writing this movie, as they always have been. Transformers 1, I'm still going to call it that, by the way, because they just refer to it as Cybertron movie, but that was the tentative title given out. Obviously it won't be called that in the end, but I kind of would have liked if it would be. But anyways, moving on to this one anyway. This is allegedly the final draft of the script, which leads me to assume that this movie's gone through intense rewrites. It was never cancelled. Whatever happened with this movie was that it was originally going to be really heavily in depth with the lore established in Transformers The Last Knight, and it was going to probably reference Quintessa and I guess Unicron, and as well as the Decepticon War, and it would probably have thrown in the Allspark and the Staff and all these different things. I mentioned this before, I think, on my old channel. But that would have been really complicated for one movie to do the beginning, middle, and end of the war. So that went through some rewrites, and then I imagine they were rewriting it to be a prequel or something, and then now it's being rewritten again to the point where we are here. And supposedly this movie is now, in its current state, not tied to any of these 6 movies. Bumblebee is a prequel. That I'm saying that for the record. Bumblebee is a prequel to the first movie. But Transformers 1, it's not connected to this movie or Bumblebee or anything established in these movies. It's its own separate universe. Which, you know, at the one point I'm disappointed we're not getting an origin story for this universe, but then at the same time, I'm glad, because it's not going to be conflicting with some of the lore established in this movies, and it gives them a chance to reboot and start all over again. And, you know, they won't be tied to the lore in these other movies. It won't conflict, and that won't take away from us. Because Bumblebee, while being a prequel, did have some minor inconsistencies here and there that you kind of had to use your imagination to work around a bit. It also, by the way, Transformers 1 also allows them to establish the backstory of Optimus and Megatron, because the backstory that we know of from classic Transformers and from comics and stuff is about Optimus being Orion Pax and Megatronus being a gladiator. But that wasn't the backstory established in these movies. Optimus Prime's backstory, brought up in Age of Extinction The Last Knight, was that he was one of the first Guardian Knights created, and he was the perfect creation. He was their leader. His original name was Nemesis Prime. He went on crusades across the universe and then eventually rebelled, and it seems like he lost his memory or something, and then he got caught up with the war on Cybertron decades later. Now that's a really cool story and it's very unique, and I would love to see that, but at the same time, if you're making a movie and trying to define the story for the most heroic character, obviously a lot of people would be very upset if that backstory was actually just saying, hey, Optimus was actually a villain all along. So I can understand that they won't go with that, and by keeping Transformers 1 separate in its own universe, it allows them to tell the Orion Pax storyline, so to speak. So they don't have to worry about Nemesis Prime conflicting with Orion Pax if it's set in this universe, which is grand. Supposedly the movie's plot does center around the relationship between Optimus and Megatron and how the war began. Which leads me to one interesting thing. I know it says it's not tied to any of the movies, but would it be tied to War for Cybertron on Netflix? Like, I wonder if War for Cybertron is going to be like the actual war. Like, we're going to see that some of the beginning of the story isn't told. It might pick up right in the middle of the war, and we're going to get vague hints as to Optimus's original relationship with Megatron and things like that. I'm thinking, what if Transformers 1 becomes the prequel to that prequel and fills in the actual very beginning steps of that story, so that the movie comes before the series? I would be fine with that. I think that'd be pretty cool. Or maybe it'll come afterwards, who knows, but it remains to be seen. Like, I could actually see it actually being set after the movie, even though I think before would make more sense, or series rather, because look at the other two animated movies we've gotten. The Transformers the movie in 1986 was set between season 3 and 4 of the show, and Transformers Prime in 2013 was set after season 3 of Transformers Prime. So animated Transformers movies have a history of being set at the end of their series. So it's possible they might do that again, or I'm completely wrong and this is just speculation, which it most likely is. You might notice that I'm not as excited as I would be. And why is that? You know, Transformers 1 was something that really excited me back in the day when all the rumors and stuff started coming out. Because I wanted to see this movie. I was excited to see an origin story back then to these films. And then as it went on and started changing, you know, it didn't bother me. I was still really excited for it. And if this movie happens, I will be really excited to watch it. But the reason I'm not excited for it at the moment is because I don't know whether to believe these rumors. And I say that because you recall, going over the last few months, we've had so many conflicting pieces of information about what movie's getting made. First of all, it's that Transformers 6 is happening, and that a Bumblebee sequel is happening, and that Bumblebee sequel will be about Optimus and Bumblebee. Then it was that Bumblebee was a reboot, and that the sequel would be a complete reboot. And then we had stuff that I think after that was that Bumblebee is a sequel, but we're getting a Beast Wars movie that's a reboot in a new continuity. Things like this, and now we have this, which seems to go against the last bit of information we got about this. It could be that they're throwing ideas around back and forth, and that this animated movie set in stone is happening while all these stuff about Beast Wars and a Bumblebee sequel are all going to get made eventually, sort of like what I was saying about Hasbro earlier about making animated and then a live action film. Because this movie seems to be complete in terms of script, which means they're going to go into animation very soon. We know for a fact it's not a 2020 release. 2021, you know, it's an animated movie, so I don't know how long. Animated movies, I think, are more complicated to predict in terms of how long it would take to do them, especially since we have no idea what the visuals are going to look like. So it could potentially be a 2021 release, but I'm not setting on that. You know, I think on my last Transformers video, or even recently, I've been thinking that if we ever get another Transformers movie, it's going to be a 2022. But I was thinking with a live action mindset, so I was like, okay, all the stuff that's going on in the world at the moment means that nothing's happening. A script might be being written, but nothing's happening. So, script would be getting written this year, filming would begin in 2021, and a movie would release in 2022. That's how I always saw it. Because that's what happened with these movies, especially with The Last Night, it was always that script gets written and they're filming the next year and the movie comes out the year after. But I don't know, now that we're getting an animated movie, it could come sooner or it could come much later. Maybe they want to throw out a live action movie in between. I have no idea. Or if it is connected to War for Cybertron, they might want to finish up. See, just War for Cybertron's a trilogy, so that means that could go for 3 years. So we have the first season in 2020 and then 2021 and then 2022. The movie could come out either in 2022 or the beginning of 2023. I doubt it's 2023 to be honest, but it could come out late 2022. And that's what I'm going on, very boldly assuming it's connected to that series. It probably isn't. It's probably its own separate thing. And this might be smart, this is a way for them to reboot the series and continue forward with a new storyline by establishing the very beginning. That is the one thing that I think may have affected some of the decisions in these movies. The War on Cybertron story was never told for these movies. They had nothing to go back off of, so they could just make up everything as they went along. Which, when you try to piece together in context with the war, seems kind of jumbled up, even though I love these movies for what they are, except this one. It is something that did kind of, I think, affect the decisions as they went on. Now with this, with them starting at the very beginning and then working their way forward instead of going forward and then jumping back, it kind of fixes things a bit. And we'll just have to see how it plays out. I'm not really that excited at the moment, simply because every so often there's rumors about a new movie, and they're all like official sources, so I bet you in like June or July we're going to get another piece of information that says I don't know, that a Transformers 6 is in development or something, and then it's going to contradict all of this. That's why I'm not excited for it. I mean, if we hear more consistent stuff about this movie in the next few months, then I'll start getting excited. But I don't want to get my hopes up, simply because, I saw this article and I kind of rolled my eyes. Because I'm delighted the movie's happening, especially when I saw Andrew Barreer and Gabriel Farrari. It's going to be a very different movie it's going to be an entirely different movie from what the original one was, but that's for the better going forward, and we'll have to wait and see. I don't know what movie's getting made, if any, and I'm not holding out hope. I kind of had a defeated attitude after Bumblebee because, you'll recall, anyone that's watched my old channel, or anyone that really knows me, would know that after Age of Extinction came out, my all-time favorite movie, I was way too excited for The Last Night. I had so much writing on that film being good. I had so much expectations, and in my own mind I knew exactly what the story should be, roughly. And then, as the trailers came out and I was getting excited, it all sort of came crumbling around me rather slowly. March 2017, when I was watching some of the clips about Hot Rod and stuff, I was beginning to feel like, okay, this is not going to be the movie I was hoping it would be. I'm kind of getting disappointed. The movie came out June 20, I think it was the 22nd here. I know it was the original release was the 23rd and the 21st, but there was a bit of confusion. But anyway, it's June 22nd anyway. That happened anyway, the movie came out. I threw all feelings of disappointment out of my head going into the cinema, as anyone who's seen my video that I did going into the cinema to watch The Last Night, I was going in and I was like, it's gonna be cool, I'm gonna enjoy this. I've waited for this is my special moment. And then the movie just disappointed me, where none of the others have. I loved all of them, I was able to go past them. This one just didn't. And I wanted a reboot straight away. I remember it came out saying that, but then all the news, the writers' room disbanded, all that happened. I was disappointed, and I also wanted a sequel. Then Bumblebee was coming along, and then, that was fine. The trailers didn't excite me or anything. I kind of watched them, and they didn't have the same feeling that any of the other ones had. So I was just kind of like, when I was watching them. There was so much conflicting information about it being a prequel, and reboot, even though it is a prequel. Then that came out in cinemas in December, and it was grand. I loved it when I saw it. I wasn't sure if it was better than Age of Extinction. I was like, it's up there to be the best movie. But that was my initial reaction to Bumblebee. I was like, okay, this is the best one. And then as it went on and all these arguments and debates kept going on, it just ruined the movie for me. And Bumblebee is now sank lower, and Age of Extinction once again remains the supreme film out of all 6 of them. And you know, Bumblebee was ruined for me by all that discussion and debate, and it just kind of ruins how I see the movie, because I don't know how to see the movie now, because it's so, in many ways, even though it's organized, it's actually probably more messier than The Last Night was, if you really want to think about it. So that had me excited, and I loved the movie, but then I was disappointed as the months went on. And that leads us to here, where now I'm like, I don't feel the excitement anymore. I've had 2 Transformers movies that have been ruined for me. One of them was terrible, and one of them was good, but has a lot of bad clout around it. And now at this point, I just want a movie that's good, that we can all get and enjoy. Or even if it's the case of the other movies where everyone hates them and I love them, I want it to be something that at least makes sense when I'm watching it. But I feel like that's too much to ask for. But that's my little rant out the way anyway. That's just why I'm sort of just throwing this news out there without much excitement behind it, even though I love the movies. I love the brand as a whole. Transformers has always been a massive inspiration for me in what I want to do, and it is my all-time favorite franchise, even though I don't pay it that much attention anymore. It is my favorite franchise, and it's a shame to see it on such low life support, because the Netflix series is really the only thing for Transformers at the moment. And it remains to be seen. Who knows? Maybe I'll be doing another video tomorrow or in a couple of months talking about new info. But I really hope Transformers 1 goes forward and it still happens, even as a reboot, because then it would be perfect and everyone's getting what they want. Another movie, in-depth showcase of the backstory to Prime and Megatron, all these things. And it allows them to throw in little Easter eggs of what they can show in the future. So, yeah, things like that. They can get the lore right, or more correct to the comics and the shows this time around. So yeah, I am gonna cut it at that, because there's nothing else to add. I will be talking here all day otherwise, but yeah, that is it. Let me know down in the comment section below. What do you make of all this news? Are you excited for another Transformers movie? What do you think this movie is going to be? Do you think it's actually happening? Will it be connected to the Netflix series? And how do you think they're going to explore the backstory and things like this? When do you think it's coming out? And are we going to get another live action movie afterwards? And when? Let me know down in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you. So yeah, with that, I'm going to leave it at that. I will have, a playlist up here for you, for anyone who wants to look at any of my previous Transformers videos. Feel free to share my videos around if you like what you see, and I hope you got something out of this, and share it around to anyone else who might be interested. So yeah, with that all said, thank you all for watching, and please subscribe. Nova Scorbase out.